Welcome to the ThunderCast, your martial athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. Links to all of our social medias are in the description to every episode. You can find us anywhere you like to consume some social media content like Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. And of course, ThunderCast.online, the online home to all things ThunderCast. I want to say right at the outset, Russ, we've had some interest in the past couple of weeks since you've talked about, hey, would you like to contribute to ThunderCast.online? Then get a hold of us and we'll see if we can make that happen. We're 2 for 2 as far as reach outs go. I don't know, I'm not in the loop in everything, but hopefully that continues, that trend continues, and we get some folks that want to cover some sports or just talk about things from a, again, fan perspective. We love Luke Creasy. We do not want to compete with Luke Creasy. We think he does a fabulous job at being a beat writer, and that's not what we want. We don't want a beat writer. We want fan perspectives. Russ, I know we've had a lot of news that was announced this week. And also this week, our series of position group breakdowns will continue. Last week, we started everything off with the 2024 Marshall football coaching staff. This week, we go into our first actual position group, and it's going to be the special team. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. But I'll tell you what, I know we've got a big week. Let's get ourselves a quick word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
Now, I'm anxious to know kind of what we're talking about this week in the things, because there's so much news. I'd like to know what made Russ's top, 5, 6, 7, I don't know. So hit me with at least 5 things every herd fan needs to know this week.
Well, I do have a 5 this week. I've got 5 things every herd fan needs to know. And as always, they are brought to you by Ignite Link, the Tri-State's premier IT management team. Number 1, Athlete Advantage takes over the Thunder Trust, and it will be managed by the herd's own Stevie Browning.
Yep, and there was some smoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and I like this, right? Because Marshall, we were trying to do some things in the NIL space. The Thunder Trust was doing a really good job. It's just that these things consume so much time.
Yeah.
I mean, so much time that you really need people who are in those roles full time to be able to maximize what you can do in that arena. So before you get into the particulars, because you have far more details than what I have and what I know, I'm going to be learning a lot of this in real time with our listeners. What I want to say is, for the donor, for the regular old fan like me, who's a donor to the Thunder Trust, not much changes outside of your experience should become better as these guys get into their roles and settle into their responsibilities and things. But just for you as a donor, if you're like, hey, man, is the Thunder Trust still a thing? Is it changing its name? I read this article. No, it's all the same. Your donation is going to continue. Nothing changes, except for hopefully your experiences will get better. And it will seem, if you're one of those folks that doesn't think it's worth it, maybe it will seem like it's more worth it to you. And maybe it'll push some more folks off the fence to become a donor. So give me some of these details, some of these big time points of what this means for the Thunder Trust, for our athletes, and for our donor base.
All right. So first and foremost, Stevie started June the 1st. June the 3rd, whenever, the first Monday of June. And he has an office over in the Big Green area, which is, if you're not familiar, go in on the 3rd Avenue side of 20th Street, City National Bank. Don't go in on the 20th Street side. Just go in. You'll see the big M and big green out there. Go in there, and to the left is the big green offices, if anyone has not been there. Go in, go to the left, go to the desk, say, hey, like talk to Stevie, and is he in? He's got an office in there. So you can actually go in and talk to him. Mike and Tyler and the rest of the crew that was here for the Thunder Trust did an amazing job. Helped get this thing started and put it to where it's at. And they did this while they have small children, families at home, and full-time work schedules at a pretty high level for their jobs that they were doing. Some of the other people that were helping, you had lawyers at law firms. You got Tyler's in wealth management and Michael's a CPA, and they're both up at the partner level. So a lot of work that they were putting into this just in the time that they did. And now Stevie is going to have a full-time schedule of nothing but this. He's the general manager of this. Athlete Advantage is at several different schools, and it's pretty far reach. If I'm not mistaken, USC is one of the places that they do. They do Kentucky football, not Kentucky basketball. They're over at WKU, which you know all about that from talking with Steven, your counterpart and friend over there. This has just set up a much better way to dedicate a full-time schedule to this now and take the Thunder Trust to the next level. And taking that to the next level means everything for our athletes, and it means everything for our performance as well.
Yeah, and what this says to me, really, just from a bird's eye view, is like you bring in people that have like successful, proven models. No matter what size of the operation you're dealing with, they have a model that's going to fit what you want to do. So nobody is going to say that Marshall's NIL efforts are going to match what USC does, right? Nobody's going to say that. But there are some peer institutions as far as size and budget and fan base and fan support and things like that, that Athlete Advantage is also partnered with, so that there are proven models that will work in those size operations as well. But I don't think anything is going to be more important than having somebody that does this full time, like a centralized point of contact. And to put on top of that, they're a former Hurt athlete. They're a name that most all fans are going to know and recognize. And I don't think it also hurts. And it's not really a big factor, really. But I think it's also cool that he's a West Virginia kid. That matters to a certain degree to some people. So I just think this move is right on so many levels. And I'm with you, man. I got to know Mike and Tyler, and they're great dudes, man. But I would not wish upon myself the busyness of their schedules, and then on top of it, trying to manage and operate all things that went into the Thunder Trust. I mean, I got a lot of respect for those guys. I really do, because my schedule isn't as nearly as busy as what theirs are. And I don't think I would want to dedicate as much time as it took to operate the Thunder Trust. So
yeah,
this is a great move to kind of reignite and spark this arena, which we know now is immeasurably important to the success of all athletic departments across the country.
You mentioned Stevie being a West Virginia boy. Ryan Miller, the founder and CEO of Athlete Advantage, is from right here. And Tom Bauer spent time at Marshall, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even graduated from Marshall. And he's the president of Athlete Advantage. So there is a lot of local flair to this organization. But this isn't a new startup. This isn't like, well, we're going to try this out to see if this pans out. It is already working at high-level institutes across the country. They are already running successful NIL programs and collectives at these individual schools. So this is not something where, we're throwing a dart at something. This is the next progression of what was already built by Tyler and already built by Michael and already built by their crew of people that, those two were kind of the de facto faces, but there are other people that were involved. And the level of commitment that they put into this to build it up to where it was we can't thank them enough. We went from having nothing to having this, and now Athlete Advantage doesn't have to build from the ground up. They can come in and they're already hitting the ground running because things are in place. The Big Green is being, open arms, even though, they are looking for, fundraising efforts for scholarships for the athletes, and NIL is looking for fundraising, to give that to the athletes. The Big Green said, we're all about trying to help the university and the athletic department. Stevie, here's an office right here where you can come in and do that. So it's just the synergy that's going on. It's really good. Really good.
It's really good. This is only going to prove positive for Herd Athletics in the coming months and years. But this is big news. I mean, that was a big story, and I'm not sure too many people gave it the full credit of the amount of hugeness that it was. But this could prove as a pivotal moment in the future of Herd Athletics for the next number of years.
Yeah, and I promise you, we are going to have more info on this very soon, and we will have some firsthand accounts and things of that nature in the near future. But as of right now, that's our top story, I guess it was, for the week.
For good reason.
Yeah. Number 2, soccer schedules are out for men and women's soccer. Tell me your initial thoughts on the men's schedule.
It is a banger, man. It is a banger. It is front loaded with some heavy hitters, and it is back loaded to see that the back end of that schedule, particularly like the last month or so, dude, the entire season might come down to that last month of the season. When you talk about having to play the University of Kentucky and you have to play WVU, like your last few games, and as expectations, you would imagine 3 of the top teams in the Sun Belt. You can probably toss UCF in there as well, but 3 of the top teams are going to all be playing, or at least the Herd is going to be playing them. I haven't looked at WVU schedule and UK schedule, but it makes you think that they're all 3 going to be playing each other in the last month of this season. Yeah. But man, that's going to make for some awesome soccer. They've put together a really, really, really exciting schedule, and with the addition of seats at the vet, you can expect that we're going to have one of the top tier environments in all of collegiate soccer. So the men's team looks like they have just reloaded and are ready to commence with the ass whippings again. And the women's side of things, they haven't really backed off. It looks like they're making the Ivy League circuit to a certain degree there early in the year. I think that's pretty cool. I didn't expect to see like Dartmouth and Harvard on the schedule, but that's pretty neat. I don't know why, but it's just pretty cool to see that. I think that Coach Samos is making a little bit of a statement this year. It's like, hey, we're not easing into this thing. We're kind of going at it, and we're just going to see what we're freaking made of right out of the gate, and I'm cool with that. I love that. I love that attitude. We know that Herd women's soccer needed a bit of a boost. The expectations of the men's program, however fair you think it is going to trickle over to the women's program, because you can't have one team that's a national championship contender and have all the same essential facilities in place and everything like that. And you can't make excuses for one versus the other. And then you have another program, their counterpart, that's not really being competitive, not even contending for the conference. They're just not really that competitive. So I think that this regime change, the breath of fresh air that's being breathed into Herd women's soccer, the recruiting approach, how the schedule, I think it's all just like, we are jumping in. We are not easing into the water. We're jumping in. Let's do this. And I'm here for it. But I don't think anything has got me more excited than the final month of the men's SBC slate. I think it's going to be freaking balls to the wall and completely awesome.
Let me run down the men's schedule here real quick. The first 3 games are all exhibitions, so they will not count in the standings. But we're at Notre Dame, and they were in the national championship game.
Right.
And then we're at Northern Illinois. That's August 10th and August 13th, Northern Illinois. And then we have an exhibition game at home August 17th. So your first chance to see the 2024 squad, August 17th at home at the Vet. Then we start the regular season slate August 22nd. Cal State Fullerton. Then we go to Xavier August 29th, and that is the only away game we have all the way until September the 20th. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 games at home. Go to South Carolina September the 20th, and that kicks off the Sun Belt Conference. And then we're back home, VCU, Old Dominion, James Madison. Then we go at UCF, at Coastal. Then we're back home, Georgia Southern, at Georgia State, at Kentucky, and then home for the Mountain State Derby to end the regular season. Big ramifications probably going to happen in that game. But 10 of our 16 games in the regular season are at home. It's going to be a hard schedule.
Yeah.
But that's what we want. And
Yeah.
10 games at home gives us a good advantage and sets us up pretty well.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough schedule, but you're one of the best teams in the country. You should
right.
be playing that type of schedule.
Yeah. And we've never backed away from playing a hard schedule.
Right, because that's what continually proves that you're one of the best teams in the country. And it doesn't, of course, you can't go in there and be losing all these games, but if you're winning most of them, even fighting to a draw every now and again, it's just, this is different than football. And I know a lot of people have a hard time separating how the schedule might look for football versus soccer, right? You want to win them all, but it doesn't kill you if you go in and don't win, right? It's that same kind of thing. So I just think it's reload and reboot again for Coach Grassi and make another run. And the SBC slate is gonna be tough. The conference as a whole is only getting better on the men's soccer side.
Yeah. On the women's side, we've got Delaware and Drexel, both exhibition games. They're both away. So the first chance you'll get to see us is the 2024 women's soccer schedule has August 15th, Morehead State, the home opener, season opener. And then a couple of away games, then back home 3 times in September, and 4 in October. 8 of the 16, very even, home, 8 away.
Yeah. Get out, right? Get out and see them, right? Because we think this is going to be obviously a new look Herd women's soccer team. I'm expecting to see a lot of what we have come to love about Herd men's soccer. A lot of pressure, a lot of just relentless type pressure that this Herd team will put on their opponents. And certainly that's what I'm hoping to see, because that's been so fruitful for the men's team. I hope that that's the exact approach that Coach Samos is bringing to the women's team, and that they see some immediate success. But you got to get out to these games, obviously, and people are going to churn out to see the men. They do to a good number already. We're turning out to see the women play, and I expect that seats will become more of a premium as the season goes along for this Herd women's team, because I just expect them to be better and better and better and better as the year goes along, and they're going to become more of a draw. So make plans now to circle a couple of games and make sure you try to go to at least 1 or 2 to test fire it. If you've never been to a women's soccer game, just go and test fire it. It's fun. It really is. I had a great time. So I'm excited about both of these seasons, really. I think you have to look at Marshall men and say, this is our obvious next best chance for a conference championship, obviously. Not just because really it's the next season that's going to open, but they're a contender. And I don't think that right now you can look at the Herd women's soccer team and go, they've got no shot. Like, that's not where you're at right now. Like, they might have to prove some things, but I don't think you can just look at them and go, they didn't do enough. We're not going to be competitive. I think that you look at that and say just the opposite. They're going to surprise some people. And when it's all said and done and the dust settles, if enough goes right, they might be right there in the thick of things, to be able to sneak in there and win a conference championship. So let's give it a go, man. I'm here for it.
All right, so moving on, but very related, number 3, tickets are on sale to the general public for both men's soccer and women's soccer. There is some update to this. We talked about it with Christian Spears on our special last week, and we alluded to it before in the things, if I'm not mistaken. But we have additional seats, 250 seats, and that is officially Section 100. Now, if you picture sitting in the side where the press box is, all the way to your right, that's where the 250 seats are. So on the same side of the field, right there at the you can exit right through there, and they have concessions and things over there. So they put in 250 seats over there. Tickets, Section 103, right in the center on the press box side, premium bleachers, $200. You're required 2024 Big Green member. Standard bleachers, that's on the section what we just talked about, and then 101, 102 to the right, 103 or 104 and 105 to the left. Those are $100. Required Big Green member. Section 100 is excluded from that Big Green member requirement. So you can still just go in there, $100. Remember, there are 10 men's games, so that's $10 a game. Yeah. Do not have to be a Big Green member, which we encourage everyone to be a Big Green member. But if you are not, or if you only have one person in your, enough, you've got a Big Green membership, but not enough to cover so many seats, that doesn't matter in Section 100. Then general admission on the other side, $75. They're first come, first served. Student section is over there as well on that side, and that is first come, first served. Obviously, there is no price. You can't buy a student ticket.
Yeah.
So that's where it is. You can find that chart on Herd Zone. There's an article about season tickets, and says all M season ticket $25, and doing that gets you an exclusive men's soccer scarf.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, man. I think I would jump on the new seats without the Big Green donation if you're not a season ticket holder right now, because I bet you're going to wish you had those when they do go to a required Big Green donation. I think it's probably inevitable. The want for those will increase, and they will go to folks that are Big Green donors. So you might as well secure those seats now, so that if and when that change does occur, you're going to have your seats locked in. All you'll have to do is make the Big Green donation to keep them. Don't wait and think that that'll last long. I bet this will be a one and done type thing for this year only. It would not surprise me. So if you're on the fence, you better pull the trigger on them right now, because I bet you next year you'll wish you had.
Over to the women's tickets, it's much simpler because those are all general admission. So general admission for the season, remember there are 8 games, it's $40. And you can get a family pack just like it was in football. It's 4+. So if your family is 6, you can still get the family pack. Those are $25 per seat. Cool. So save a lot of money, $25 per seat. Again, you're getting 8 games at that price. So,
and that's a minimum of 4?
Minimum of 4.
Okay. Well, that's a good deal, man, because 2 would be $80, and then you get 2 more for just an extra $20.
That's right.
That's a pretty good deal, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So we expect at this low a price, get your butts to women's soccer, get a big crowd there. It helps. It helps. That place is so electric. Not only having your voice there helps, but then the money, of course, doing that just is going to help the recruiting efforts and uniforms and everything that they're going to have. Both of these give to the championship funds as well. Got 2 good programs here. Women's soccer, we think, is going to have a jetpack put to it with Coach Samoes. So get in on the ground floor and get out there. It's a great time.
Also, don't be afraid to go a little early and pack a cooler and get your ass out over there and tailgate, because that's becoming more of a thing, right? They're trying to designate larger areas to be able to go tailgate and have an area for these larger matches that are going to be focal points in our region. I mean, you can't just have teams like WVU coming to town, the University of Kentucky coming to town. These are regional draws to where they can become big events, right?
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. When you go to Lexington, there are Herd fans that are going to travel to Lexington to see the Herd play the Cats. So Marshall has realized that they have lightning in a bottle with these soccer programs, and they're trying to make it far more fan friendly so that you can get out and enjoy the hell out of your evening and tailgate. So you better like do a little research on this stuff, man, because you can find, hey, I don't have to wait till football season or only on game day Saturday. Like I can tailgate and have a good time down by the vet too.
Yeah, they will 100% welcome you right in. There's a big tailgating crowd there already. It's not set up the same way if you're thinking of football as like, oh man, I need to find out which parking spot to go to. No, you just show up and everyone's there tailgating. Yeah. All right. So number 4, what we got here, these are things that you might normally find in around the Herd, but they were some pretty big things. Men's basketball picks up a transfer from Desain Mingo. He comes from a Canada college, and he was a pretty big scorer for them. So what do you got on Desain Mingo?
Well, I didn't have a Canadian prospects on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
But what that tells me is Coach Jackson and that staff is leaving no area unexplored, right?
Mm-hmm.
As this roster continues to evolve and come together, I'm not sure, how to. I'm not sure how I can accurately give a synopsis of it right now because it's evolving, right? But I'm seeing a consistent effort to check certain boxes, right? So you can tell it's not just going to be the style of play that we have been accustomed to for the last decade. It's going to be really similar, but it's also going to be quite different. And I think we'll be able to talk about that more when we have the opportunity to have a finalized roster, and then we start to do a deep dive into what it's all going to look like and how it's all going to mesh together. But I can't tell you that I'm angry about what I'm seeing because I'm not. I'm loving the fact that we're bringing in players that complement one another. So you're seeing the evolution of what I'm hoping is going to be a pretty complete team. And we're not going to be able to say, wow, they're really lacking in the the defensive prowess down low. Man, they're really lacking in perimeter shooting. Man, we still don't have a ball handler. I don't think we're able to say any of those things right now. But I just want to wait and reserve judgment until I have a full complement of players on a roster and we're done. But I like this move. I got to tell you that I like the move.
Yeah, Mingo is a 6'4" guard, 20.8 points a game and 4.8 assists per game for the University of Guelph last season. Comes from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, is where that college is at. A scoring guard was something that we needed. Yes, this is a totally different league that he was in. It wasn't Division I men's basketball in the NCAA United States that we're used to. So comparison is a little bit different. But you score 20.8 points a game at whatever level you're at, that tells me you're a scorer. It wasn't just accidental that he got to 21 points a game. He is a scorer. So can he score 21 against Division I, year one in the Herd? I don't think he's going to have to.
Correct.
I think that it's going to be a situation where we just have someone that can. If you score 21 points a game, it tells me that you're probably making your way to the free throw line and picking up some points that way. So maybe you're drawing that foul that you need. Maybe you're a penetrating guard. Maybe, whatever it is, 21 points a game at whatever level is going to play for us. If that translates to 10 for us, that's 10 that we need right now from the guard. 6'4" guard, that's some good size. It's a great pickup for us to get a scoring guard, which was much needed.
See, also what this tells me is you might not be tasked with scoring 20, but if it's your night, you can.
You can.
You know what I mean? It's like you're enough of a shooter to be able to catch the fire if somebody else is having an off night. I think it really feels like that coach is surrounding or building this team with scorers that can be that guy, but may not have to be that guy, because we already know that Nate and Obina can be those guys if we need them to be. They're good for double digits, every night, but we had far more questions about guards and shooters this year after, losing Kerfman to eligibility and the transfers that we saw leaving the program. Those were the questions. Some of those questions are starting to get answered.
Yeah. So talking about getting to the free throw line, he was 81.1% shooter from the free throw line. He only shot 26% from three, so he wasn't a long distance scorer. Again, this is something that I think that we need in this, is someone that can get to the foul line, someone that could drive, penetrate, and then kick it out, whatever. It's a very good pickup, and I'm excited to see how he meshes with the team.
Me too.
All right, number 5, Haley Adkins transfers in for softball. She is a local gal, came from Miami, Ohio, but was originally playing high school ball right here in Hamlin.
Yeah, so let's make that connection real quick. Not just the local connection, but the collegiate connection. Head coach Morgan Zirkle came from Miami, Ohio. So this looks like it could have potentially been someone that she steered towards Oxford, and is now going to come back to Huntington and play locally for the Herd. That's now 2 players in 2 weeks that are local high performers at the high school level that are transferring in to play for Marshall. I am loving what is going on. And I got to tell you this, man, this is like, when do you have 2 coaches that are playing pro ball, 2 assistant coaches that are out on the road recruiting, and that you see recruiting momentum building, right? That seems like a weird storm, right? It just doesn't seem like it's a recipe for success. So either Zirk and McKinney are out there playing their asses off daily and then hitting the phones and doing the Zooms and all that stuff in the evenings, or we've got some really, really super hardworking assistant coaches in Allie and Allison Rager, right? Because this just doesn't seem like it should work, but it's working. It is working.
You mentioned Coach Zirkle having that connection. Obviously, she did have that connection. She coached her. There's actually photos. If you go to Coach Zirkle's Twitter account, has her coaching Haley as a preteen, it looks like, and then followed her, of course, to Miami, Ohio. By the way, what she did, and this info comes from Paul Swan. I always like to give shout outs where I get this info. At Lincoln County High School, Haley set records in batting average, doubles, and triples, and was a 3-time captain. So that's the kind of player you are really excited about, that had that leadership ability and everything. 5'8", sophomore infielder, and joining the Herd, and one of many more to come.
Certainly hope so. Certainly hope we're not done, because I like seeing the evolution of the roster, the softball roster. Still think we're looking for a pitcher or 2. I just still feel that way. But, I love bringing home high-performing in-state talent. I think that matters. It just matters, man. It just does. I never get mad at a kid that's from the local area that feels like they need to get out of here to see what else is out there. But it feels really good when they go, you know what? I can do this same stuff for a hometown squad, and we've seen that for the last 2 weeks straight, and I hope that momentum continues. But yeah, man, I love it. I love what this softball team is poised to look like this upcoming season.
Yep. That does it for 5 things every Herd fan needs to know this week. And as always, brought to you by Ignite Link.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you one bonus thing that's Herd related, but also not Herd related. Since we were just talking about softball, going to give a special shout out and congratulations to head coach Morgan Zirkle on attaining her 100th career hit for the Athletes Unlimited Pro Softball League. I think that's pretty cool. She is the 2nd player to ever do that. Coach has still got it, man. Coach has still got it. How do you not want to come and play for a woman like that? She'll coach you up on the field and then go out and perform what she's telling you to do. right? She's just one of the all-time greats to ever wear Kelly green. Think that's a super cool accomplishment.
Yeah, and getting it done in the field out there too with some
flashing the leather,
yeah.
man. You're flashing the leather. I love that. You know, I'm the diving outfield catch. I'm gonna always love that. All right. Well, that's it for the 5 things. I think that's pretty cool. I'm really excited. I got to be honest with you. I'm like really excited about the future of Herd NIL with Athletes Advantage. I think that's just such a big thing that's going to pay big dividends here in the near future. But let's get it over to our featured story this week, which, of course, is the continuation of 2024 Marshall Thundering Herd position group breakdowns. And let's talk about the special teams, Russ. Huge hits to this program, well, not this program, this position group. And, of course, it's mainly specialists. Of course, we can't talk about all the guys that contributed on special teams that may have transferred out. This is mainly going to be your kicker, punter, long snapper, and your returners. And, man, oh, man. Not kind to the Herd special teams was Phil Steele this year, ranked 13th in the Sun Belt. Yowza. Of course, Herd special teams coached by Jonathan Gallant, entering his third season with the Herd. Now let's get into where the hits happen. Russ, portal out, unkind to Marshall. First, Marshall loses, well, I don't know chronologically which one they lost first. The first one I'm going to talk about. Chronologically, unsure, but first loss, third team, all Sun Belt Conference punter, John McConnell, who we said many times over the course of recap episodes last year was just a huge part, played a huge role in games when Marshall's offense was just struggling in games. John McConnell bailed him out many times, and it was to me, that was a gut punch to see him enter the portal. And there's, we're not going to speculate as to why. The fact is he's not on the roster anymore. Then, of course, you have to talk about All-American kick returner Jaden Harrison, who hit the portal and ended up at South Bend, Indiana for Notre Dame. 2 of the biggest losses really on this team from the portal perspective. John McConnell and Jaden Harrison. Russ, before what would you like me to do? Would you like me to cover portal, or would you like to talk about these out and then in and then all that kind of stuff as we get to it?
Let's just talk a little bit about what we lost right there for a second. I think that's a good thing. I'm going to start just because I've got them listed here first with Jaden Harrison. 705 yards and 2 touchdowns on only 23 different attempts. For kick returning, 30.7 average. So we are losing an All-American. We are losing a field flipper. We are losing what we were talking about offense. If we're struggling, I can remember one game that was all we had. There was another game that we were doing nothing, and then he flipped the field and put us on our side of the 50, and then that got our offense going. He was electric for us. He was a weapon for us. And 705 yards, 2 touchdowns. When you start looking at the other people that had opportunities last year, you're looking at A.J. Turner had around 10 yards on average, and then Eric Meeks led us with 17 on that. I think we put him back there, man. And that was my big thing that I was going to say. That's who we replaced Harrison with. But no, we didn't have a whole lot of opportunity outside of Harrison. So that's a big weapon that's gone. He was an All-American for a reason. And then you look at punt returner. Mason Pierce transferred out. Talik Keaton has exhausted his eligibility. They were the only 2 punt returners that we had last year, but we only had 9 returns the entire year for like a 2.3 yard average. It was 19 yards is all we got on punt returns this year. McConnell was not the only punter that we had, but by far the most opportunities. He had 61 of our 68 punts or whatever it was, 42.8 average, 15 inside the 20, only 3 touchbacks. Just a huge field flipper there as well. And we are going to miss all of that from our special teams.
Yeah, because it's the great unknown, right?
Yeah.
You really don't know what you're going to have from a punting standpoint. You have no clue what you're going to have from a kick returning standpoint, and nobody's going to forget Jaden Harrison and 75 week last year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you start the game, and that's how you freaking start a game. Right out of the gate, opening kickoff to the house. That's the magic of 75 week. That's the magic of Jaden Harrison, and now the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are going to benefit from having his services in their special teams room. Let's talk about some portal in stuff. I got a trio. No, I got a duo. Both long snappers. Aiden DeCourt, offensive lineman / long snapper, comes in from Central Michigan. And, of course, Cade Davis, long snapper, comes in from NC State just a week ago, 2 weeks ago or something like that. So 2 long snappers, no kickers that I could find that I could recall, and no punters that I could recall. There's no real need to talk about the portal in guys because, they're long snappers. We don't know who's going to rise out and be the long snapper. One remains from the roster from last year. That was Matthew Bossett. He's still on the roster. High school recruits, kicker punter Johnny I from Huntington High School is the one that's going to raise the eyebrows, not because he's the only one, but that's a good one, First team All-State performer, Fulton Walker Award winner, which goes to the best special teams player, not kicker, not punter, player, special teams player in the state of West Virginia. Of course, they keep things so close to the vest in the damn practices. You really don't know who's doing what.
Right.
But Johnny's an interesting prospect because he's so damn good, and he was pretty much automatic. And we're talking about the difference between high school and college is a different game. Right. But this is one you really got to kind of put a pin on and go, this could be a difference maker because you don't know,
Yeah.
Not on the roster from 2023. I don't know if I never saw a entering the transfer portal tweet, nothing like that. Kicker Cameron Lake and long snapper Dominic Konopka, which you remember transferred in last year from Bowling Green. So brought in 2 long snappers, lost 1 long snapper, lost a kicker. All right. Let's go to some projected starters. And right out of the gate, we can talk about kicker because we probably know who's going to be the starter at kicker because he had most of the kicks last year, and that's Reese Verhoff, the junior from Columbus Grove, Ohio. He did go 11 of 18 on field goals last year. He was perfect on extra points. He had the lion's share of kicks. I think it was early in the season to where Reese and Cameron Lake were like trying to see who the guy was going to be. I think Reese, struggled maybe in week 1 or something like that. And they gave Lake a shot and that really didn't work out. And then, Reese took over the reins and just did not relinquish them for the remainder of the year. So I think I feel pretty good about saying at least week 1 and barring injury, Reese Verhoff will probably be your place kicker for the Thundering Herd. Now you go to punter and you go, okay, Russ, who do you have to replace John McConnell? Because there are a couple that are on the roster, and if you're counting I also, who is a kicker / punter, that might give you a trio, but I don't know, man. You got Marco Peary, who was on the roster last year, he'd be a redshirt freshman, and then Alec Clark, also listed as a redshirt freshman, both on the roster currently. I'm going to give the lean, and I have no idea why. I'm going to give the lean to Alec Clark because he's the Australian punter, and I just think that's cool. I don't know if it matters or not.
He also was the only one that punted any last year. Peary did not, to my knowledge, get any in unless they've misattributed punts and put them for Clark. But Clark is the only one that has experience for us, and he came in a couple times in replace of McConnell. And Peary also is only listed as a punter on the roster, but he came here as a kicker / punter. So I would expect him to compete with Veerhoff and II as well.
Yeah. Now it should be noted that II is not currently listed on the roster, so
he's not here yet.
Right. So we are
Yeah.
still, he may just not have made it to campus because he's coming out of high school.
He
Right.
is.
So,
Yeah, he was not here for spring ball. He won't be here until August, so he can't be on the roster right now.
right. So just want folks to, if you're perusing the roster and you don't see some of the names that we will be talking about in the coming weeks, don't go crazy. It could be a situation just like that. Now let's talk about, we'll do long snapper because I don't know. I'm just going to give the nod to Matthew Balsett because he's been on the roster and he's already here, and Coach Galan has worked with him and just familiarity. But I don't know. It could be any of the guys that we've talked about already. And here's where the big questions come in because you really never know who's kick returners and who's punt returners. It all comes down to who's got the knack when you get there and who's getting the shot and all that kind of stuff. And when you talk about Jaden Harrison leaving, it had the lion's share of everything. And then you start to look at the statistics like you did. Not many people had many opportunities, but as far as kick returner goes, I'm gonna toss AJ Turner in there because he had a kick return last year. He's been here for a couple of years, and then I'm gonna give you a couple of guys that I think could make some noise, and I've got them listed at both kick returner and punt returner because I think they could be either, and they may not utilize these guys at all in these positions. But Elijah Metcalf and Doc Chapman, both transfers in.
Yep.
Metcalf coming from Middle Tennessee State. Doc Chapman coming in from the University of North Carolina. Both of those guys as returning prospects intrigue the ever-loving hell out of me just because it has been – the conversation around Metcalf has been nothing but this guy is quick as a hiccup.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And he's smaller in stature, I think listed at like 5'6" or something like that. So generally those guys are shifty as hell. They're quick as hell. They can change direction. They'll make you miss in a phone booth. All the things that people like to say to make these athletes sound uber elusive. Both of those guys I'm penciling in with no knowledge whatsoever of who's going to be our returners as two of my personal favorites to have a inside track on being punt returner or kick returner or both.
I've got everyone you've listed, but I also am trying to think outside of the box of who would be able to do return. Remember, it's not just about speed. It's just as much about vision and following your wedge and your blocks and stuff until you see that hole that opens that gives you that lane. And I put Chuck Montgomery down as someone because he's got a couple of long touchdowns, that 75-yarder that he had last year. I think that is a very intriguing prospect for me as far as finding the lane and taking it to the house. So I do see AJ Turner involved. I do see Metcalf being him or Chapman one being punt returner. The way I have always seen it, maybe I'm wrong, it looks like if you're really small, you're and I'm talking height here in football terms. I didn't mean to make you laugh. I'm sorry.
No, I was thinking I would have been a punt returner then.
Yeah. Well, if you're small for a receiver or a defensive back, you gravitate more toward the punt return game. That is where you have to catch and immediately avoid a tackle. Sometimes being smaller there helps you. But in the kickoff game, it seems to be that you have people more around that 6 foot, the 5'10" to 6'2" area. And they are more of the long stride, able to go up and just absolutely break the wedge, whatever. But I see Chapman and Metcalf going more punt return and seeing people like Turner and Montgomery and maybe Chapman going for kickoff return. Just my thoughts.
Of course, that's not always the way it goes. There's always exceptions, but I am in line with what you're thinking too. And these are two completely different crafts, right? The craft of punt returning is not nearly the same as the craft of kick returning. Right. They look similar, and people lump them together just as we are doing because they fall under the category of returner. But it's a completely different skill set. You have to have the ability. Elusiveness is paramount as a punt returner. Right? First, you have to have a set of sure hands.
That's what I was going to say. But above anything else, you've got to have somebody that knows that there's a guy getting ready to get into his 2-yard halo and just absolutely lay you out while a ball's coming. And you have to make a split-second decision of, one, am I going to try to field this ball? Two, if I am going to try to field it, do I call for a fair catch or do I catch it and know that I'm going to get hit immediately?
Mm.
I mean, you've got to have a set on you to be a punt returner. And then the greats are those ones that can do that and then immediately click, I'm gone. I'm finding the seat.
See, so we've had success over recent years. If you take Jaden Harrison out of the equation, which is really hard to do, I'm sure folks remember Rasheen Ali returned kicks for us, and he did it really well. And that was on top of carrying a running back load and all the extra hits that come along with that. So, you take a player like Rasheen Ali. Rasheen's not returning punts.
Right.
Not saying he couldn't. He's returning kicks because it's a different craft, right? So you got guys that are shifty and can change direction. You think of guys like Talik Keaton, you think of guys like that are able to make that quick move and elude a would-be tackler and then get upfield. But these are annually are the most wide open and hardest to speculate upon positions unless you have a returning guy like Jaden Harrison. Last year we were talking, it was like we didn't have to speculate. We knew Jaden Harrison was going to be the guy. And this year, that's not what we have. So I have to lean on guys that did it for us last year and guys that I think are going to have a really good shot. I'll tell you what, I love the pick of Chuck Montgomery. And I'm going to give Chuck a little bit of shine here because I think he is falling under the damn radar more than any productive herd player that we've had in recent memory. Like, I can't think of anybody that has been as exciting and has big playability like Chuck has, that people are talking less about. It's and I'm guilty of that too. I don't know why that is. So I think we collectively as a fan base should be talking more about what Chuck Montgomery brings to the table and will probably be leaned upon this year to do in what we believe to be more pass heavy offense. So let's talk about some strengths of this position group, Russ. What do you got? I've got two.
Well, I got to be honest. I think that our strength is that we have Jonathan Galante coming back as the coach to have, that continuity, that we're not replacing a position coach for this, because we have every single position here seemingly, besides possibly kicker, is going to be replaced. So this early, without even knowing, our kicker may not even be on campus if you look at it that way. Or, we could still bring in someone that is going to be our kick returner, our punt returner. They may still come in the portal. We may bring in a punter. You never know. Right now, I can't do a strength, and I know I'm copping out when I say that, but we are replacing every single position or every single position that is a returning player. They are in a battle for keeping their spot. So right now, this special teams episode, I cannot give any strengths.
And I had to struggle. I had to struggle to find strengths for the same reasons that you're talking about. Because even Verhoff coming in as a returning kicker a year ago, he split time early in the season. But the number one thing is that we have experience at place kicker, and that is a strength. You don't have a whole crop of fresh kickers new to the program, right? We have guys that have done it for Marshall at the Joan and on the road, including in probably the biggest environment in South Bend, Indiana. Verhoff has kicked in some incredible environments and has been productive. So the experience at place kicker is really about all you have right now. And if you don't have anything else, I'll just give you what else I came up with. That we transferred in a lot of speed, a lot of elusiveness, a lot of shiftiness that adds options to kick returner and punt returner candidates. That's really it. You made it tougher to pick a guy, to be the guy, but we don't know who the guy is. So that's really it. You just added options to the room. Those are really the only two strengths that I was able to come up with. It's daunting, man. You just don't replace a freaking All-American, right? I mean, you can replace a third-team SBC punter, and I'm not trying to knock McConnell because he was important for the herd. But you can replace that. It's hard. and I really wish that he was on our roster. I really do. I think he's going to end up doing some good things. I want to say he ended up transferring to Akron. I could be wrong. I think I saw that.
Are you talking about McConnell?
Yeah.
So he did transfer to Akron, and then exactly 2 weeks later, he announced that he was going to Mercer.
Okay.
There. So I don't know what happened at Akron. Also, earlier we were talking about Konopka. I don't have him on my list, but he is now at Ohio U.
Oh, okay. So from Bowling Green to Marshall to Ohio U. He's all right. Staying in the region.
One other person that I forgot, speaking about transfers in, when we're talking about kick returner, I have to put DJ Stepney in there. He's the safety that's coming from Central Michigan, and
that's right. He was like third team All MAC.
But that was a couple of years ago. He hadn't returned kicks. He didn't do it at all last year, so he hadn't done it in a couple of years. But if you can return kicks, that puts you in the mix. And he had some very good success at that, so I have to throw him in the mix with that as well.
Yeah, good catch. I totally forgot that he was the third team All MAC returner. So, yeah, you got to put him in there and expect him to be, heavily in the mix to gain one of those. How about some weaknesses?
Weaknesses is number one for me is the unknown. Right now, we are replacing, like I said, why I could not come up with any strengths because of where this falls in between spring practice and fall practice of this episode. Right now, there is just nothing known to me that I can say, I know for a fact this is who our starter is going to be at this position with special teams. So that for me is the big unknown, and what we have to replace is my second. I'm just going to do all mine together here. My second is replacing an All-American kick returner, replacing a inside the 20 machine of a punter. That to me is a weakness in and of itself, is sheer replacement that we have to come up with.
Yeah, so that is absolutely my number one weakness is the massive loss in production.
Yeah,
a massive loss. I don't have to talk about it anymore. I mean, Jaden Harrison was a game changer. He literally changed games for Marshall on numerous occasions, or he provided the immediate spark. Like I said, in 75 week, you're right out of the gate, 7-0, 10 seconds into the game. You know, and that takes so much pressure off of a team to like. We're into this game now, 7-0, 10 seconds in. The number two weakness for me is the pressure that might be put on whoever the new punter or kicker is because of potential struggles in implementing an air raid offense. If it doesn't work, 3 and out comes quick.
It's good.
Comes in quick. So you might need to have a massively impactful season statistically from a punter in particular, if you got those quick 3 and out, less than a minute long drives. I mean, because you could be putting your defense right back on the field, and you damn sure don't want to be putting that defense back on the field with a shorter field for your opposition. To compound that, if you're able to move the ball and string some drives together and then it fizzles out, which we've seen Marshall do many, many times over the years, you're going to want to be able to maximize some points. Right. And we say all the time in previews, man, we need touchdowns instead of field goals. But at some points in some games, it's like you just need some damn points.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying that I liked seeing 11 out of 18 for Verhoff last year, but that field goal percentage is really going to need to uptick quite a bit. I mean, you're looking at something that like a 16 or 17 out of 20. Is what you really need to see if you're trying to implement a whole new offensive style, particularly early in seasons where it just may not be what it will be mid to late season.
And let's look at Bierhoff's breakdown by yardage. 20 to 29 yards, 5 out of 5, 40 to 49 yards, 4 out of 6. I'll take those every day.
Sure.
But 30 to 39, he was 2 out of 6.
Yeah.
And he had 2 that were blocked. He had a long of 44 was all he had. So we need to be able to hit that 47-yarder every now and then. And one of the issues with him, good, accurate kicker, but he kicks a low ball and it got blocked twice. And that is scary to me. Also, too, I think Lake did a lot of the kickoffs. And that's just going by memory. Obviously, there's no big breakdown of who did what kickoff and stuff like that. You can look at the overall team stats. We averaged, not counting the one onside attempt that we had, because that's going to bring your average down, 60 kicks, 3,600 yards. So 60 yards on the kick. That puts you starting on the opponent catching the ball on average on the 5-yard line. Now, we did some pooch kicks and stuff like that were bringing that average down, because we had a lot that were touchbacks. We allowed 19 returns on the year for 335 yards, 17.6 on average. So they're going to start with a touchback around around that 23 to 25 yard line. And that is another part of special teams that we don't talk about a lot. You talk about the specialists and everything, but you got to have the gunner. You got to have the wedge blockers. So on defense or offense of special teams, you still got to have those guys that are out there. There's just so much unknown right now of who's going to do what. If Lake's not back and he's not doing kickoffs, who's going to do that? Can they consistently get it into the end zone for a touchback? There's just a lot unknown for me.
Well, I mean, the rules have changed a little bit, so you don't have to land it in the end zone to get that touchback. You can do a fair catch on the, you just need to. I think if you can land it inside the 5-yard line, so they've extended the end zone out essentially, because you can, still do a fair catch. So if you're landing it inside the 5-yard line, most of the time you're probably also going to get a touchback, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, it just boils down to who's got the strongest leg. So it could be Alec Clark, right? It could be Marco Peary. It could be one of these guys that's their role, or some strong-legged kickoff specialist is out there laying in the portal, and they're not happy with the progress that we've got going on from a kickoff specialist standpoint, and they make a run at a guy. But I feel confident in saying that guy is already on campus. One of the 4 or 5 guys that we're talking about has a strong enough leg to consistently get Marshall some touchbacks. And that's really all that you're hoping for, to minimize those allowed returns.
I thought of one more weakness that I meant to have on my list, but I didn't. But when I was going over these stats, I mentioned it already. We had only 9 returns on punts last year for 19 yards. And it seemed to me like every time that we had a punt opportunity, a punt receiving opportunity, punt return opportunity, we were catching the ball when they were already down to us. I don't know if that's a blocking issue. I don't know if that's what.
Let's just chalk that up to playing sorry ass punters that don't have the leg.
Well, when you look at their average and everything of people that we had, a lot of times that I'm telling you, a lot of times that is accurate. We were going against somebody that their average was more around a 35-yard punt. Totally different than ours. But we gave 30 opportunities. Keep in mind how many inside the 20s McConnell hit and all that, but 30 opportunities on 61 or 68 punts, and we gave up 350 yards, 351 actually. So we're giving up 11 and a half every time that we give a punt return up. So that to me is one of these things that we've got to fix. We can't allow someone that we have to punt it away already, and then, well, they're going to get an 11 of those yards back. And then every time that we get an opportunity, we're barely catching it and moving forward 2 yards. We can't have that. We've got to flip that this year.
Yeah, it is concerning that you're allowing 3 times as many returns as you're getting. That is kind of eye-popping when you think about that. And so I don't know, man. It's weird to think that, that stat exists. Only 9 punt returns last year. You're thinking, it has to be more than that. And then
there were so many fair catches.
No, I'm saying, but when you start thinking about it, you're like, wow, maybe it wasn't, because there was a lot of fair catches, a whole lot of them. So
there just wasn't any opportunity. I'm telling you, I wouldn't have told our guys to try to make something out of it. I mean, because sometimes they were catching the ball, had already signaled for fair catch, because there were 2 guys standing there just waiting.
Right.
Not running at them. They had already gotten to him when he had the opportunity. So, I mean, that's a fair catch, or don't touch it all day, every day.
Yeah. So let's slide into the big four questions, and then we'll get to closing this episode out. Number one, what is who's your biggest loss from the special teams unit from a year ago?
It's got to be Jaden Harrison. You can't tell me, as good as McConnell was getting it inside the 20, flipping the field, getting that field advantage, starting point, stuff like that, going in our favor for the defense. Jaden Harrison was an All-American. He was the only offense that we had during one of these games. He started that 75 game, like you said, to get us off on the right foot. 30.7 average. Mm-hmm. And he was the guy that even when it wasn't a touchdown, like I said, how many games was it that he gave us that spark with a big return of 40 yards or a big return of 35 yards or something like that, that got the sideline going, that got the offense going, that got everyone going. So for me, he's the biggest replacement.
Yeah, he's absolutely the biggest loss for this from this unit a year ago. And let's remember, he ranked number 1 in kick return average with 31.9 yards per kick, tied for number 1 with kick returns for touchdown with 2 on the season. He was number 3 in the country in total kick return yards with 669, yet just 14th in total kick return chances with 21 on the year. So he absolutely maximized everything that was put in front of him. He was the difference maker in the Georgia Southern 75-week game. The other game you were trying to think of was against James Madison.
Yeah. No, I knew what game it was.
When Marshall had a safety on the board before he got something going for Marshall. I love John McConnell, and I wish him nothing but success at Mercer, and I think he was integral to saving the herd in a number of situations in 2023. But one man was an All-American, and those are just hard to come by at the G5 level and particularly at Marshall University. And Jaden Harrison was that guy. So he's the biggest loss, without a doubt. Now, who are you most excited to see in 2024?
I am excited to see Tyshawn Chapman, who I believe is going to return kicks, and he might not. Right now, I believe that he's going to, and I'm excited to see him. I think that if we get someone getting 25 to 30, somewhere in that range, with the chance to take it to the house with the speed that he has and everything, I mean, I know that we're talking about two different things, but when he transferred in, if you remember, his sprinting stats where he was from in high school just blew away everything that we were talking. We were talking about this person did this in the 60, this person did this, and then there was Chapman. Mm-hmm. He excites me and intrigues me, and I expect him to return kicks, and I could be wrong, but right now that's who I'm excited for.
I like that you're going with a specialist, a returning specialist, based on the fact that we have absolutely no knowledge of who those guys are going to be. Yeah. And so I'm going a little bit more reserved with who I'm excited to see, because I think that it's going to be Alec Clark rising out of the punting game. Uh-huh. And based on what I labeled as a weakness, you might need a huge season from your punter if the offense is finding its way for a little longer than expected. That's what leads me to the Aussie punter, Alec Clark. I'm excited to see how he performs, if truly he is the guy that is awarded punting duties beginning in week 1, and how he will respond to potentially digging the herd out of field position holes from time to time, if that's what's put on his shoulders. So who do you got as your breakout player for 24?
It's going to be Clark for exactly what you just said. And I don't know that he's going to get the starting thing, but I just expect him. When you look nationally across the country, Aussie style kickers have had a very high success rate. And that's what intrigued me about him coming here, was we might now have that guy that's, booming one occasionally 60 yards or getting that good roll on it and everything with the rollout and everything. So I've got Clark being the breakout.
Yeah, and Marshall's just had a really good string of high-performing punters for
Yeah,
the better part of 20 years.
yeah,
I mean, we've had a
yeah,
really good string of punters, and there's been
yeah,
some down years here and there, but by and large, we fielded some great, great punters.
yeah.
My breakout is just whoever ends up being punt returner one. I don't know who it is. We've named several guys that could be that guy, but I think whoever gets the nod has risen out of a very crowded room for vying for that spot, which means they've got to be able to make some moves and get some things done, or else you probably wouldn't have gotten the shot. I think that's going to be my breakout. I don't know who that's going to be, but that's just who I'm penciling in. After the dust has settled on 2024 and we look back, who do you think is going to be the MVP of the special teams room?
I think that it'll be a kicker. And I think, it will have to be whoever wins that job with to be the MVP of this special teams. They will have to nail some 45 to 50 yarders somewhere through there. They'll have to nail some game winners. They'll have to be the guy that you look back and say he was the difference maker because he didn't miss during this game. And I think that will be it. It's so hard to say we're going to have another Jaden Harrison kick returner be your MVP. I mean, it's so rare that happens. So for me, it's got to be a kicker.
Yep, I'm with it. I'm naming him. I think it's going to be Reese Verhoff. I think he's going to be the guy who is the guy all year. And I think he's going to have to grind out a game or two where he might have to kick 4 field goals to get Marshall a win. I think there's going to be a game where he's going to be put in a situation to where we win it if he makes it and we lose it if he doesn't. And I think there's just going to be plenty of games where he's going to have to solidify that 30 to 39 yard range to where you're not going 2 for 6, to where you're going 6 for 7 in that range. That's the money range, man. Like generally the farther away you get, the worse you get. And it's weird to have a guy that's really good close and really good long and not so good in that mid-range kick. Like your bread and butter really has to be that 30 to 39 yard range. It's got to be, man. It has to be.
And he cannot go 2 for 6 in that this year. And again, no one on here is beating anybody up.
Not at all.
We're talking about factual stats, and he is going to be harder on himself than we ever will be. And I'm not being hard on him at all, but for him to get that MVP level, he just can't go 33% in that 30 to 39 range.
Yeah.
And you figure he's going to be bigger, more experienced, having the mental. That's already happened. I've gone through that. I think he's poised the same as you are to actually do that.
Yeah, you can't have another season hovering around 60% field goals. You can't do that, man. You got to be up around that 80, 85. Yep. Because if you are hovering in that range, you're going to see a change, most likely. Or somebody is at least going to get an opportunity. It doesn't mean you make the wholesale change. But if you're struggling, at the end of the day, you need points to win games. And coach needs to have a guy in there that can get him some points when we need the points. So I'm fully reliant on Reese. I think he's going to be the guy this year. That's why I've named him my MVP. So,
well, we just talked to Christian Spears here several days ago, and he brought up that Ohio State game. And when you think back about that, we had a very short field goal that we missed by Ian O'Connor. That year, Ian O'Connor also had the punt duties, and at the end of the game, we just need a good punt to put them back in field position to make it almost impossible for them to get points to win the game. He shanked it, and I think it was a 9-yard punt. And then Holmes for Ohio State gets 2 receptions, and then Nugent hits a 55-yarder, 57-yarder, whatever it was good by another 10. So you look at the kicking game, how that came down to, we lost due to our kicking game. They won due to theirs. There's going to be a game like that once a year. And that's why it's so important to have such a solid kicker. And that's why I believe that whoever wins that is going to be the MVP, because of something like that is going to have to win a game or two.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Overall, for me, the special teams unit has taken a dip in 2024. Mainly because of what we lost through the portal in 2023. By the end of the season, it could be outpacing what we did in 2023. But from right now, what we know and what we think we know,
Yeah.
You cannot say that this position group notched up. You can't say that. You lost an All-American, you lost a third-team All-SBC punter. You did. So until those guys are adequately replaced, either by one guy or by committee, you have to look at this and go, we did not get better on special teams, right? You just have to say that. I could be wrong, and I damn sure hope I'm wrong. But for right now, I think the herd notched down in special teams.
A caveat to that for me, and I know you'll agree because you've already just said it, you could be wrong, is we're not at the practices and we don't know who's slotted into these roles. We just sat here and guessed on kick returner and punt returner.
Sure.
We may have somebody right now that the coaches are going privately, this is going to make Jaden Harrison look like, no big loss. Yeah. Back there returning punts like a tackling dummy. But we may have a punter that is getting 3 to 4 more yards on his punts than McConnell, and doing it in a way that we are not giving opponents 30 opportunities to get 351 yards on us and change that field position. We may have a kicker right now that we say, man, he's automatic from 45 in.
Yep.
Without us seeing that, it is that unknown. And the reason that I couldn't come up with strengths that say, yeah, we've notched down. But the reality is we may be at the same, or we may have notched up. And I think that we're going to have to wait till fall practice until we can get an eye and a hand on that and say, here's where we're at.
Yeah. Well, that has brought an end to this week's position group breakdown of the special team. So if you got nothing else, let's get out of here.
Yeah, so whether you see us at the Joan, whether you see us at the Jack, whether you see me at the Coldcats game tonight, or whether you see me going off in an ambulance because it's 98 degrees outside and I'm about to have a heat stroke, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It is the ThunderCast. Next week, we'll be breaking down the offensive line. You don't want to miss it. It's the ThunderCast. We'll see you next week. Later.